And now, a story from the AppleSeed.
So, raise your hand if you ever complain. Honest people in the room? Yes. Well, I have a confession to make. I come from a very long, illustrious line of complainers. Going all the way back, my ancestral line, to the days of Moses. When Moses led us through the desert out of Egypt, through the desert to the promised land. If anyone is familiar at all with those scriptures, you know we complained. In my family, complaining is normal. It's just what we do. But occasionally, my grandmother, if you complain, would smile and say, be careful. Could be like that Rabbi and the goat. What Rabbi? What goat? But that was it. My grandmother was a terrible, terrible storyteller. She didn't tell the story. She just referred to stories like they were relatives in the other room. You know, the rabbi and the goat. Well, my friends, I became a storyteller, so I want to share with you now the story that she never told me about the rabbi and the goat. But for this story, I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need you all to do the sound effects. And we're going to do it in a very simple way. When I raise my hand like this, it was going to be your turn to make the sounds. And when I put my hand down, we'll just stop making the sound. So you have to keep your eyes on my hand. Okay, so let's practice. For example, in my story, there is the sound of a baby crying. That was so good, but it was a sweet baby. It was a calm baby. I'm talking about a very miserable baby. Yes. Once upon a time, there was a man called Moshe. What was his name? Moshe was a poor man. He was so poor that he lived in a one-room house with his wife, his 5 children, and the mother-in-law. Oh, life in that house was so hard. The children were always fighting, especially in the winter when the snow was high and you couldn't go out to play. And the baby was always crying. And the wife and the old grandmother were complaining, oi, oi, oi. This is the Eastern European Jewish way of complaining, and you're going to be really good at it now. Let's give it a try. Oi, oi, oi. Oh, you're all converted. Moshe was miserable. He needed help. Where does one go to get help? To the rabbi. The rabbi is the spiritual leader. The rabbi is the wisest man in the entire village. The rabbi will know what to do. Moshe comes to the rabbi. Rabbi, we're all so poor. We live in a one-room house with the wife, the 5 children, and the mother-in-law. Rabbi, it is so crowded you cannot breathe. And the noise, it couldn't be worse. Help me, Rabbi, tell me what to do. And the rabbi, he nodded his big wise head. Can you all nod your big wise heads with me? And he stroked his long white beard and he said, I think I can help you, Moshe. But you will need to give me your word of honor that you will ask no questions. Yes, Rabbi. Good. Moshe, tell me, do you happen to have any poultry, chickens, roosters, things like that? Yes, Rabbi, I have 2 chickens, a rooster, and a goose. Good. Moshe, I want you to go home. I want you to take the chickens and the rooster and the goose and bring them into the house with you. Rabbi, the rooster, the chickens, and the goose in the house. Moshe, no questions. Yes, Rabbi. Moshe went home a little confused, but he took the chickens and the rooster and the goose out of the shed and into the house. And what can I tell you, my friends? Life became worse. Because now the chicken, their feathers were everywhere. And when Moshe sat on his bed that night, he heard a strange and there was egg yolk oozing through his fingers. And if that wasn't enough, why, there was the noise. Because the chickens, they were hysterical. They were clucking day and night. And the rooster was crowing every hour on the hour. And the goose was honking. And the baby was crying. And the wife and the old grandmother said, "Oi, oi, oi." Oi, Moshe needed help. Where does one go to get help? He goes to the rabbi. He goes to the rabbi. He shows up the next day. He says, Rabbi, the house, it's like a barn. There's feathers everywhere. There's eggs between the sheets and the noise. Rabbi, it couldn't be worse. Help me. Tell me what to do. And the rabbi, he nodded his big wise head, and he stroked his long white beard, and he said, I think I can help you, Moshe. Tell me, Moshe, do you happen to have a cow? Yes, Rabbi. She's brown. Good. I want you to go home, Moshe. I want you to take the cow and bring her into the house with you. The cow, Rabbi. The cow, Moshe. No questions. Yes, Rabbi. He went home. He took the cow out of the shed. He brought her into the house. And what can I tell you? My friend's life became worse. Because the cow took up all the space. The poor woman, the poor wife, she was just trying to get to the stove. The cow switched her tail and slapped her across the face. And then slapped the pot of porridge off the stove. Porridge went flying to the ceiling and dripping down into everybody's hair. And if that wasn't enough, why, there was the smell. I don't really know how to tell you this, but that cow had no manners whatsoever. She did all her business in the middle of the room. And if that wasn't enough, there was the noise because the cow was mooing. And the chickens were clucking. And the rooster was crowing. And the goose was honking. And the baby was crying. And the wife and the old grandmother said, Oi, oi, oi. Oi, oi, Moshe was going out of his mind. He needed help. Where does one go to get help? He goes to the rabbi. He shows up the next day. He says, Rabbi, the house, it's like a stable. The cow is taking up all the space. The smell, Rabbi, the smell. Rabbi, the noise, it couldn't be worse. Help me, tell me what to do. And the rabbi, he nodded his big wise head, and he stroked his long white beard, and he said, I think I can help you, Moshe. Tell me, Moshe, do you happen to have a goat? Not the goat, Rabbi. The goat, Moshe, I want you to take the goat and bring it into the house with you. Moshe went home the long way. And when it was too cold to stay outside, he took the goat and he brought it into the house. And I don't know what you know about goats, but they're not picky eaters. The goat was eating everything in sight, munching, chewing, shoes, socks, sweaters, blankets, pillowcases, and when it wasn't chewing or munching, it was butting with its horns, it was kicking with its legs, and adding to the noise, because that goat was bleating, "Ma, ma, ma," and the cow was mooing, moo, and the chickens were clucking, and the rooster was crowing, and the goose was honking, and the baby was crying. And the wife and the old grandmother said, "Oi, oi, oi." Moshe didn't even wait for the sun to rise. He was at the rabbi's door, and the moment that door opened, he stumbled in and he said, "Rabbi, this is the end of the world. How can any human being be expected to live like this?" The rabbi said, "Moshe, you're absolutely correct. No human being should ever be expected to live like this. I want you to go home, Moshe. Yes, Rabbi, I want you to take the goat and the cow and the rooster and the chickens and the goose out of the house immediately. Yes, Rabbi." Moshe ran home, and he took out the goat and the cow and the rooster and the chickens and the goose out of the house and back into the shed. And oh, that night everyone slept, even the baby. And in the morning, Moshe came back to the rabbi, his face beaming with joy. Rabbi, I came to thank you. You saved my life. Oh, the house. Oh, so roomy and clean and quiet. Oh, thank you, Rabbi. 1,001 thank yous. And they say that from that day, Moshe lives in the one-room house with his wife, his 5 children, and the mother-in-law. And if ever anyone complains, he says, it could always be worse. It could always be worse.
Thanks for joining us for a story from the AppleSeed.